And then you attack the left for trying to get reasonable solutions to a problem, whereas your solutions are unfortunately unreasonable.
Maybe more Jesus, more God, more prayer, and more compassion is what we are missing.
Jerry Boykin is a former lieutenant general in the United States military. But let me give you his list of accomplishments. Well,
the Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. And in Revelation 19, it says when he comes back, he's coming back as what? A warrior. A mighty warrior leading a mighty army, riding a white horse with a blood-stained white robe. And I believe that blood on that robe is the blood of his enemies, because he's coming back as a warrior carrying a sword. And I believe now, I've checked this out, I believe that sword he'll be carrying when he comes back is an AR-15.
But wait a minute, I thought guns were bad. False. Guns are good. In fact, did you know that Jesus and Moses used guns to conquer the Romans?
The gun lobby also believes that God has an important role in all of this. Just listen to NRA Chief Wayne LaPierre.
No greater personal individual freedom than the right to keep and bear arms. It's not bestowed by man, but granted by God to all Americans as our American birthright.
Evil people will always find evil ways to do evil things. The solution isn't to start stripping away rights.
This Democrats want, of course, bans on all sorts of weapons, including the AR-15, which is the most popular rifle in the United States. But this idea that it's all about begging, that it's all about if we just cared enough, that all of this would be fine, we just agree on everything, that, of course, is not true in the slightest. This, of course, however, is what the left is suggesting. So the same student, Cameron Kasky, he says you're either with us or against us, which is pretty wild language, considering we are all with you. No one wants to see kids get shot.
You're either with us or against us. We are losing our lives while the adults are playing around. And we have received endless support from your generation, and we thank everybody for that immensely, because we really appreciate it. We don't need you. On March 24th, you are going to be seeing students in every single major city marching, and we have our lives on the line here. And at the end of the day, that is going to be what's bringing us to victory and to making some sort of right out of this tragedy.
What does victory look like? What does victory look like? That's the real big question. Okay, if victory is no more shootings, then we all agree on the definition.
Those men raped that woman in India to death with an iron rod 4 feet long. You can't ban the iron rods. The guns the iron rods pierced didn't do it. The tyrants did it. 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
That's what the great mystic from the Middle East, Jesus, the Christ, said.
The Gosh's son rose before the sun to start on his paper route, a route that his father usually accompanied him on. But this particular weekend, the boy asked to go alone, bringing his Dachshund with him for company as he pulled his wagon of newspapers across the sleepy Iowan neighborhood. But when neighbors began calling the Gosh home to report their papers had not been delivered, John found his son's wagon full of newspapers 2 blocks away from their home, with their Dachshund tied to it. It took 45 minutes for the police to arrive, a slow response time Noreen has criticized publicly. Witnesses, including other paper boys, say a man pulled up in a car and asked all of the boys for directions. And after he sped away, another witness reported that a second man emerged from between 2 houses. He was on foot, and he followed the Gosh's son, who, without as much as a whimper, vanished into thin air. This boy's name was Johnny Gosh. The day of Johnny's disappearance, search parties started combing parts of the city to find traces of Johnny. Noreen recalls that the search party in the national park was sent home by a police chief who drunkenly climbed atop a picnic table and shouted through his megaphone that Johnny was nothing but a damn runaway. Police departments from surrounding counties sent backup to aid in Johnny's search, yet the same police chief turned the men away. And even though police ruled Johnny's disappearance as a kidnapping, they wrongly marked him in the system as a runaway. Desperate, the Goshes took Johnny's disappearance public, calling on ordinary citizens to keep an eye out for their son. A few months after Johnny vanished, Noreen said reports of her son in Oklahoma circulated. He was seen yelling for help as he was dragged off by 2 men. A few years later, Johnny's photograph appeared on the side of milk cartons nationwide. He was among one of the first children whose disappearances were publicized this way. But again, nothing ever came of this. His kidnappers showcased finesse and expertise in the practice of abducting children, leaving no trace. So time passed. More children went missing. The Franklin scandal and the Finders cult scandals broke. The scandals involving child trafficking implicated those at the very top of the American power structure. Yet, those same individuals remained untouched by the law. Their victims who spoke out against them were silenced, either by incarceration, ridicule, or death. But one of the victims, by the name of Paul Bonacci, who refused to be silenced, told his attorney, John DeCamp, that he had been abducted into a sex ring with Johnny Gosh as a teenager, and that Paul himself was forced to participate in Gosh's kidnapping. More time passed, and no Johnny. But Noreen had been keeping a secret. One morning in 1997, she heard a knock at her door. Waiting outside was Johnny Gosh, accompanied by a man. Johnny looked to this man for approval to speak, and Johnny proceeded to tell Noreen what exactly had happened to him. He had been held captive by a ring of pedophiles. He explained to Noreen the details of how they trafficked the children, and then he left, without word on where he was living or where he was going. In 2006, Noreen reported that she found photographs left at her front door. They were photographs of 3 boys bound and gagged. Noreen claims that one of the boys featured in the photo is her son, with his mouth gagged, his hands and feet tied, and a brand on his shoulder. Even though authorities insist that none of the boys featured in the photos have any connection to Johnny, Noreen still believes the pictures to be of her son. With Noreen's insistence that her son is very much alive, rumors and speculation have swirled regarding his identity. But that's a debate for another day. Johnny represents a case from a time when the public wasn't ready to stomach the truth. How many more Franklin scandals need to happen? How many more Finders cult scandals need to happen? How many more little boys need to disappear Will we continue to bask in blissful ignorance because our children are safely tucked in at night? Or will we tackle the beast head on so that the children who disappeared can finally come home?
FBI tanks punched through the building walls.
Reports suggest that cult members have really worked out the fire department of Waco and nearby cities. Those departments were not alerted. We need to find answers to that.
As part of a suicide pact at the
Hey, we had food for a year. Why would we want to commit suicide?
Were you one? Federal agents took to the air Sunday afternoon. Well, hey, when they come in on your house, you gonna let them come in on shoot you?
That theory is ridiculous.
This process, talk about that at all.
Tanks and helicopters were in evidence with night vision cameras under dark Texas skies.
As to the thoughtfulness of the tear gas yesterday.
Hopefully be its last, but probably most crucial phase, and that is the review to learn how we might better approach such potentially violent situations in the future.
The national conversation continues to be how to keep our children safe from gun violence. Everyone acknowledges this is a crisis. So for the president, for the Republican Party, for the NRA, every option is on the table except fewer guns.
This does not pass any common sense test whatsoever.
The National Education Association said more guns in a school is not the solution.
The problem is that very dangerous people have very easy access to very dangerous weapons.
She's right, and she's using the patient, exasperated tone of a teacher explaining something to the dumbest student in her class, which in a way, she is.
This morning, he took to Twitter to clarify his position and double down. I never said give teachers guns. What I said was to look at the possibility of giving concealed guns to gun-adept teachers with military or special training experience, only the best. Yes, Trump never said to give guns to teachers willy-nilly. I mean, can you imagine what this country would be like if anyone could get a gun? Now, Trump tweeted on, if a potential sicko shooter knows that a school has a large number of very weapons-talented teachers and others who will be instantly shooting, the sicko will never attack that school. Cowards won't go there. Problem solved. Yeah, that's what sickos are known for. Logical reasoning. And What does he mean? What exactly does he mean by weapons talented? That's not really a phrase I want to associate with teachers. Boy, Jim, you sure are handy with guns. Have you thought about working with children? He finished, must be offensive. Defense alone won't work. Oh, sir, I think your suggestion is offensive enough.